It's time to sit back, relax, and listen to Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life will inspire, motivate, and empower you. Live your best life now. Listen, learn, think, and decide. Change your attitude, change your life. And now, here's your host, Joan Herman.
Welcome to Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. You're listening to us in your neighborhood from coast to coast and around the world. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Joan Herman, author, speaker, and your host. Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life brings you interviews with some of the most inspirational and influential people in the world. It's our goal to educate and empower you so you can live your best life now. Thank you for taking time for yourself, and thank you for letting us be a part of your life. We have another great show for you today. Since September 11, millions of Americans have been deployed to serve in protection of our country, and that means that millions of parents have watched their children go into harm's way. Today's guest, Elaine Brye, knows the pain of sending a child into service, but for Elaine, the concern is magnified. She is the mother of 4 military officers, one each in the Air Force, Army, Navy, and Marines. Elaine found her calling when she joined the Naval Academy Parents Listserv and began a journey of helping parents adjust to their new role as military parents. She offers advice to help navigate the long and bumpy road of having a child in uniform. Elaine is the author of the book, Be Safe, Love, Mom. Welcome, Elaine. Thanks for joining us today.
I'm so happy to be here with you today. I just love talking about the book, and more importantly, I love reaching out to my fellow military parents.
Elaine, you are doing wonderful work, and you are touching so many lives, so I'm very happy to have you here. And as I said in the introduction, millions of Americans have been deployed to protect our country, so there are many parents out there who have been thrust into uncharted waters with very little assistance. So how did you end up becoming a guide for these moms and dads?
Well, it actually goes back a long way. I grew up in the military. My father was in the Army, and so I was essentially born to a life in the military. I moved many times, went to 12 different schools, and I subsequently joined Air Force ROTC, but I was unable to get my commission. They discovered a medical problem that prevented me from doing that. But along the way, I met my husband, who was an Air Force pilot. So I had this deep military background. He ended up leaving the Air Force and becoming an airline pilot, and he wanted to raise our children on a farm. So we ended up in a very non-military area, living on a small farm in eastern Ohio, and raising our children there. But somehow they all ended up following in the family legacy and joining the military, and it began when our first son went to the Naval Academy, and it was the summer of 2001, and there was this thing called a listserv, and as our sons and daughters started off on their version of boot camp, we had this way to communicate amongst each other and encourage each other and share with each other, and I discovered a lot of parents had absolutely no understanding of how the military worked. Why were they screaming at our sons and daughters? Why did they have to wear such funny-looking uniforms? And so I began just using my background as a military child to explain just some of the common ways that things are done in the military, why you have rules, why things are all supposed to be exactly the same, why there needs to be a certain way of order and discipline, why they needed to create a stressful environment, because if you are in combat, it is a stressful environment, and our children needed to be pushed and they needed to learn how to operate in stress so that later on they would be able to just perform what they needed to do. And they were being trained to have one of the biggest responsibilities that you could possibly have, to take care of soldiers and sailors and airmen and Marines. And so I just began to write, and then along came 9/11, and everything changed. We went from a peacetime Navy to we were a nation at war. And for everyone in the nation, life changed. But for those of us as military parents, it was a very sobering time. And I began to encourage my fellow parents and remind them that this was what our children had felt called to do. And so it started this chain where every year I began doing a series that I called Plebe 101, where I would guide parents through, especially that first emotional summer when you had to let go of any kind of control, and I would orient parents to the reality of what it felt like to have your child not only start a new college, but become a member of the military.
I mentioned that each of your 4 children is serving in a different branch of the military. I mean, when you look at one of your family photos, it looks like an ad for the Pentagon. So where are your children now? What are they doing?
Well, it's really interesting because a lot of people think it was a contrived plan, and it wasn't at all. And in fact, if you were to meet our 4, you would think, are you sure they're in the same family? Because they're very different personalities. They each had different college majors. 3 of them did go to the Naval Academy. Our oldest service selected Marines out of the Naval Academy, and he is an F-A-18 pilot. He's completed 4 deployments, and he's just now completing what they call their ground tour as a forward air controller, and he will be heading off to Japan. Our second son is a naval flight officer in the Navy, but he is doing his sea tour, so he is based on the USS Ronald Reagan. Our daughter, she is our rocket scientist. She has a master's in bioastronautics. She has transitioned to the reserves, and she's in the Air Force Space Command. She doesn't do traditional reserve work. She gets activated several months a year, and she manages satellites and rocket launches. And then the baby flies Chinook helicopters, the giant big helicopters at Fort Hood in Texas.
So Elaine, we talked about 9/11 and how everything changed. Were any of your children sent to an area that was involved in combat?
Amazingly enough, it was our daughter. She was the first one to be deployed to Afghanistan. Ironically, 9 months after she graduated, she found herself on a deployment to Afghanistan by herself doing a logistics mission. So when I say by herself, she was not with a unit. She was literally traveling by herself from outpost to outpost. And one of my sons was flying over Libya when we were involved with that. So they've all had their time.
Did you ever have a time when you may have been on the phone with one of your children and something happened on the other end that left you in a state of fear, not knowing what was going on and whether or not your child was safe?
Well, there's that classic video clip from American Sniper when Cyacyl is on the phone with her husband and all of a sudden things are happening and she can hear the sounds in the background. For me, that was an internet email exchange. I was messaging back and forth with my daughter, and I was sitting in the church parking lot waiting to go into church, and she messaged back, "Mom, I've got to go. We're being rocketed. I've got to get to the bunker." And then she was gone. And I spent the next hour sobbing in the parking lot, wondering if she was ever going to come back. And about an hour and a half later, I obviously I never made it into church. About an hour and a half later, an email pops up. "I'm sorry, I'll never do that again." You know, sometimes there is such a thing as TMI, too much information, and that was an example of that. It's better to know afterwards than in the midst of things.
In your book, you write using the military term, embrace the suck, and I will say that is certainly suck to embrace. So what does that actually mean to military parents, to embrace the suck?
A lot of the military life is hard. And that saying starts with, even when you're in boot camp, when things get really hard. And so one of the first attitudes that you need to learn is it doesn't do any good to whine about it. And it doesn't do any good to just shut down and just curl up into the fetal position because it's too hard. You've just got to lean in and do it. And so that is how I was raised. I was raised as a child during the Cold War and then the Vietnam War. My father went to Vietnam twice, and those are very hard days. And we were living on post. Many times, kids' dads didn't come home. And you learned as a child to embrace the suck, that you just had to keep going. You had to keep supporting your family. You had to keep supporting your mom. And you had to just keep moving forward. And so that's what I say to parents now. Yes, it's hard. It's hard for your sons and daughters, but it's not going to help them if you are so stuck in how hard it is or how much you're missing them or how afraid you are. You have to lean in and you have to figure out a way to get yourself through that so you can be supporting to them. They don't need to carry you with them, worries about you with them. You need to be the person that is cheering them on.
And Elaine, we're talking about embracing the suck in relationship to the military, but I think that's a philosophy that we should all incorporate into our life and embrace the suck. You can either let tough times knock you down and define you, or you can get through those times and come out stronger. So Elaine, for parents that may have children that are thinking about joining the military or maybe getting ready to be deployed, what challenges can these parents expect and what advice do you offer to them?
Well, the very first thing is the letting go piece. You are not going to be able to have the control that you had in the past. And this starts the minute they leave for boot camp or however they're moving away. And this really applies to however your children are leaving your home. And when you don't transfer control to your children, when you don't say, I believe in you. I believe that you are responsible enough and that you are an adult and you can handle this. When you don't start to show them that, you're really undermining their confidence. And you don't want to send people out into the world who think, my mom and dad don't think I can handle this. The second part is losing communication, losing the expectation that your children are going to be able to communicate with you in the way that they did when they lived at home. And I see this all the time. It's not a reasonable expectation. You need to learn how to cope with the lack of communication, the worries that you may have, and all those things. And that's when I write about what holds you together. What are your mechanisms? How are you going to craft a way that you can cope? Your children are trying to make themselves better. They're being pushed to be their best. So what are you going to do to be your best?
The book is Be Safe, Love Mom by Elaine Brye. If you'd like to get more information about Elaine, you can visit the website besafelovemom.com. Elaine, thank you so much for being here with us today. You are touching so many lives and offering comfort to so many people. And I'm happy that I had the opportunity to have you here to help you get your message out.
Well, thank you so much, Joan. It was a pleasure to talk with you, and I just hope that everyone enjoys the fact that they live in a country where they have the liberties that they do have because of our sons and daughters.
We'll be right back. Hi, this is Joan Herman, host of Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. Did you know that Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life has a free monthly digital magazine that can be read online or emailed to your inbox? Every month, nationally recognized leaders in their field provide information to educate, inspire, and motivate you. We believe in a holistic approach to life, incorporating mind, body, and spirit. Check out a copy of Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life 24/7. Visit cyacyl.com and be sure to tell your friends. Thank you for joining us today. We hope you found the show informative. At Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life, we believe that knowledge is power. Take what you've learned, apply it, and live your best life now. Remember that the information provided are the opinions of our guests and should never replace the advice of a professional who knows your personal situation. If you'd like more information, visit our website, cyacyl.com. That stands for Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. While on the site, listen to past shows on demand, read the digital magazine, and be sure to follow the show on Facebook and Twitter. Until next time, this is Joan Herman. Thanks for tuning in.